Well, welcome back. We've taken a couple of weeks off, haven't we?
Yes, welcome back to Inspiration Education.
Yes, episode 39. We are trying to make our brains function this morning, I think, right?
We have summer brain going on.
Yeah, it's been, well, let's see, how many weeks have we been out of school now? I don't know.
I don't know. Remember, it's been one long suckcation since March 13th.
Did you say suckcation?
Suckcation.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
And here we are on our campus, which is a little surreal.
Yeah.
And very, of course, very empty without our students.
Yeah.
But we wanted to come back here to film live for our reflection episode.
Yeah, so this episode is all about self-reflection.
Yeah.
It's our own personal annual review that we're having.
Exactly. We value self-reflection. One of the most studies have shown that one of the most meaningful ways to learn is through a metacognitive pathway by doing self-reflection. And so we're going to harness that power and give back to you guys what we learned. What are our positives and what are our opportunities for growth?
How we did our own personal annual review is we went through and looked at all of the episodes that we've made for this year, because that really was a recording of how we've done this year.
Yep.
And we found some positives and we found some things that we need to work on.
Yep.
So do you want to start?
Yes, I would love to start. The most powerful episode for me was episode 20, Don't Write Your Lesson Plans in Blood. And
that's the one where we were nerded out and we changed lesson plans that day.
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah, it was, Cassie, come record me tomorrow. And you're like, well, why should I record you? And I started describing my lesson and you were like, meh. And then I realized, yeah, it's kind of a mad lesson. And I went from a teacher-centered lesson to a student-centered lesson, and the kids loved it. I love that episode for a number of reasons. One, the power of collaboration. I think that's one of the biggest things for us this year is that we grew so much from this collaborative interaction.
Yeah.
And I grew in so many different ways working with you, but then it reminded me to go out and collaborate with other teachers.
Wow, my arm is out of shape. I have to hold the GoPro, and I'm not used to this. You know, it's like when you first get back into school for the year and your voice hurts because you're not used to talking so much.
I engaged one of our self-contained teachers, a couple of our self-contained teachers about 3 weeks ago, and said, hey, I want to know more about your world. I want to even be able to come in and sub for you if you were sick. And it has generated this conversation of me coming into their classroom, and actually I've met with them already a couple of times this summer, and we're gonna meet more. So even over the summer, we're generating a collaborative learning environment.
You're going to have to hold this. My arm is going to die.
I got it. Yeah, besides, in episode 20, besides the power of collaboration, was always looking for opportunities for student-centered learning. So much of for me, what I've learned over the years is just letting go of control, letting go. And part of that is when you want to be teacher-centered, it's funny, you want to be in charge. It's your own little kingdom.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I learned to do much better this year. That would be a positive for me, is that this is my 4th year teaching. I finally figured out that it's okay to let go of what I think is the best thing that they need to be learning in that moment, and rather to facilitate the education, and then they take it on this trail that is congruent to what we're trying to be getting to them. But it's their own way to be relatable, and to just let them go with that. That was something that I felt like I really did well this year, and the students really appreciated it.
Was this one of your favorite episodes too? Well, I shouldn't say favorite episode, but the one in which it exemplified what you're talking about.
Probably this would be the best one that exemplified that. Is it my favorite episode? Not necessarily. And I think probably that's because probably one of my favorite things, I have a couple things that I love to do in teaching, and one of them is letting students talk and debate. But the other thing is to not be in a classroom. And so my favorite episodes are actually when we're not in the classroom.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And we're
completely
out learning in the field and
going to primary sources. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So something for me that I want to continue to work on as a teacher is in episode, I've got it written down, episode number 13, where it was called Differentiated Learning. And I think that's something that I need to continue to work on and hone. As I said earlier, one of my most favorite things to do in class is to let students talk. And we go into these informal Socratic seminars, actually just about every single class.
Right.
And I have adapted it to meet the needs of students who don't voice their opinions well, at least in the company of others who are louder mouthed in a good way.
You've created a safe environment.
I have,
However,
for them to be able to do that. However, I would like to continue to be able to reach students who have different modes of learning besides just being able to speak.
Good.
So for example, every week I don't do tests in my class, but we do assignments where at the end of the week they're
tell me what you learned.
Yeah, they're telling me what they've learned for the week. And I want to come up with other ways in which they can be able to do that.
Something I want to work on is, so what are we doing right now? We're doing self-reflection. Right now I'm at PBL World Conference, 3-day conference online from 9 to 4 every day.
How's that going, by the way?
It's going great. We do have an hour break for lunch, so you're not like in front of a computer the whole time, and they are giving us breaks. But by the way, let me just tell you how amazing it is to be able to be at a conference online, one that is done really, really well. The way they're running this is so highly professional and giving us best models practice for how to do something online.
So it's a 3-day course. You've been in it one day, right?
Yep.
What's a big takeaway from yesterday, your first day?
What I already knew that my weakness is providing students the opportunity to self-assess and to peer reflect, because then that drives the revision process. And they can't own their learning if they're not doing that, right? So if you're not self-assessing, you can't know what you need to do in your revisions, in the revision cycle. And so I knew that was already something that I don't do well.
Well, this is fun.
The GoPro ran out of room,
Which didn't, because there was it was all prepped and ready for the day, and then it just decided it was full.
Hey,
so we're using my cell phone.
Yeah. Blessed are the flexible, for they will not be bent out of shape.
I love that.
I know, right?
And my husband is a soldier. He always says Semper Gumby instead of Semper Fi. Always flexible.
That's awesome.
Wow. Okay. Another one for me, it was episode 19, I think it was. No, episode 18, and it was called Interdisciplinary CIA, Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. Yeah. And for me, that was one that I think that I need to continue to work on. We as teachers, it's really important that we are intermingling different disciplines into what we do. And so how can I include the different disciplines into my history class, into my social studies class? So something I thought of, like for the curriculum, for the C piece, if I could somehow bring in the physics department to have my students learn more about maybe rocket propulsion as we're studying the Cold War.
Yeah, right?
Wouldn't that be something cool?
Absolutely.
So that's something that I think that we need to do better as teachers across the board, no matter where it is that you're teaching.
I completely agree, and I consider myself a lover of interdisciplinary learning, but I still find it so easy to just gravitate to just your content area.
Yeah.
And I forget the power of those things. And so I want to be more mindful of that myself.
Yeah. And how powerful would it be if the social studies and English department, for example, got together and had our students write one collaborative paper, you know, where maybe the content is history, but then the English department gets to work on the MLA formatting and the paragraph design.
It's just a simple example.
Well, and it cuts down on student workload, and yet they're learning everything that they need to learn. How cool would that be? And I know a lot of you out there are already doing that, but there's a lot of us that are not doing that yet, and we really need to.
Episode 16 was on summative assessments, and we gave wonderful examples of summatives. I have one really strong, great summative assessment in my field ecology course for my desert ecology class, but I don't for the second semester, which is marine ecology, and it's because I don't have an end in mind, right? Right, and so of course going to PBL World right now is reminding me in problem-based learning that you have to start with the standard. The standards help to drive your driving question. But you start with, okay, how am I going to assess this summatively? And so again, beginning with the end in mind. And I teach seniors, and so I'm wanting to open up opportunities for them to maybe have a voice and a choice in what the summative assessment should look like.
That's interesting.
You know, I think as you're preparing them for their 21st century skill worlds, but you also need to narrow it a little bit because, because sometimes if you leave it too open-ended, then it's too loosey-goosey. And
they don't have time for that. That's not the student's
you spin
job.
wheels a little bit. Right. So I want to come up with some choices for them so that they can own their summative, but I don't know. I'm really excited for doing that a lot better. And I'm already working on this summer. I'm working on what those summatives are going to look like. I got to say though, 100%, the summative that you did for U.S. history with the social history interviews. Again, I'm going to keep bringing up PBL World, but someone was like, well, maybe I should do something where it's online, social media or Facebook or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what my collaborator did. So I've already used you as an example to people I'm networking with. That is such a phenomenal way to have an authentic audience for your students' work.
Absolutely.
But again, that was a semester-long progress that you scaffolded.
Yes, it was.
And that's why your students succeeded.
That's it, episode 39. Thank you for your patience. I know we were MIA for a couple of weeks.
Should we look forward to episode 40?
Yeah, episode 40 is going to be kind of a fun one if it all works out as planned.
Keep it a surprise, though. We have a big surprise for episode 40.
Okay. We have a fun surprise for episode 40, so hopefully we'll be back next week, and we will see you there with
two guests, important guests.
Two beloved guests.
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, hopefully you're able to wrap up your end of year in some sort of way with some good closure.
Exactly. The closure this year was the lack of closure was really hard. So this was a really meaningful process for us.
Yes.
To have closure. So we encourage you, take some time to have metacognition and reflect.
Yep.
Maybe journal, maybe video. Find your own modality for making your thoughts permanent.
Yep.
And grow.
Because remember, self-reflection is the most important thing. We as teachers, we're always learning, lifelong learning.
Amen.
We never reach the summit, so.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
See you guys later.
later.
Bye.